Everything you wanted to know about possessions, but didn't want to ask. What is a possession, technically? It is when an external, as in controlling, or internal, as in embodiment, spirit, soul, external agent, internal agent, is attempting to influence your cognitions, emotions, occult build-up, soul, shadow soul, etc. So this is something not within the paradigm of tested science nor the paradigm of psychiatry. However, through countless years, I witnessed that your biochemistry, your cognitive emotional circuitry, your fear, arousal, instincts, thoughts, skills may be influenced by spiritual agents. The idea that possession is something evil, the malignant spirit, is usually false. Let's take the framing of Agrippa, Master Agrippa, that you may be possessed by a low, middle, or high spirit, infernal or celestial. I tend not to divide them, but let's say that there are multiple polydemonic, polytheistic, and polyontological ways and types of beings. So, first, let's derive it all from nature. Gnotis auton. How do you know your nature? By experiencing the manifold confrontations by things that want to influence you. You may be shaped by them along the way. You may be shaped to the contrary by opposition and antagonism, or you may be shaped by compatibility or complementarity. So, are all such possessions malignant? Not always so. A possession is malignant only when it attempts to override your mind, affections, cognitions to the detriment. When something is trying to override your freedoms or override your willed nature or your nature as you know yourself and try to render it alike to its own nature, overriding your original, genuine self, nature, inclination, karma, and so on. So, is the possession the only thing in the game? No, there are emanations. For example, when a spiritual agent is emanating through you as an embodied or walking through catalyst focus. There are avatarizations of higher class, usually when a demigod doesn't override your will, but enhances everything that is already in you to the utter perfection. You do not become this demigod during avatarization, but when the demigod embodies, you are brought to the finest points of your possible excellence. Now, some brutes may all of a sudden turn into excellent rhetoricians. Some idiot savants, may be turned into geniuses all of a sudden. Some person who is not trained in combat or martial arts all of a sudden may become a great inspired warrior with alke and all these swords dancing around him. No? This may be seeming like an impossibility, however, I experienced many of these issues myself. And after years, you get to know yourself pretty well. Now, what happens if a malignant nature is trying to overcome you and you resist? This is a form of an ordeal. You either become the devil that chases you, or you absorb its nature, learn certain ways, the tricks and tools of the trade, and that force, if not being subservient to you, at least respects you. So if you are respected by certain forces, and that is rare. By passing certain ordeals, you need to be careful not to go too much, because it's very easy to lose respect. It is very easy to turn yourself from a wise person into a babbling idiot. And sometimes certain forces will subvert you and turn you into that babbling, hateful, vulgar idiot that you don't want to see in yourself. So, laws of reversal. You aspire to something that is subverted and you end up somewhere else. That's a training of character, of ethos, the metamorphosis, Apuleian, Ovidian, back to the ancient schools. So, why is it that most people nihilate such experiences? Well, it is because they are not aware that something is influencing them. And people that are ignorant is the most easily influenced substance matter. If you have an idiot in government, he can be pulled on strings like that. And he thinks for himself. No, he doesn't. He's just a puppet. Puppetized little idiot. So goes for many other situations. Now, there is a paradigm in the occult saying that if you don't believe in something, it can hurt you. Well, these are parallel worlds, and yes, it may. They have an objective ontology. So if you're an atheist, if you're a good Christian believer, or a Buddhist, or a Hindi, or a Shintoist, it doesn't matter. The territory matters. Genius loci, the genius of the place. First, the territorial spirits, then the, let's say, chthonic infernal ones, and the airy, celestial, and so on. The planetary intelligences that could go on forevermore with classifications of bestiaries, but what for? Let's not multiply beings beyond necessity. So, what can we do about it? A problem, a solution. Now, the exorcisms or banishments work only with a skilled operator to remove the, let's say, amount of spirits that may be naughty with that person. And the masters of exorcism and banishment in ancient times, for example, the Neoplatonic theurgists were both theurgists, necromants, nigromants, and exorcists. These was generally in the package of the magician curricula. Now, what about Jewish or Christian exorcisms or Muslim exorcisms? They don't work. I mean, the only idea is to pray, to rely on some force, or to rely on other demons that are more powerful in the Vatican necromantic demonology than the culprits that trouble the person. And they enter solitarily pacts with those demonic forces in order to banish something out. But they are just ignorant. Deluded ignorance, thinking that the prayers actually help anyone. Now, how does an exorcism work technically? An exorcism works like that an entity that is not desired by that person is banished either by the power of the operator, by the resonant entity, or by a superior entity that has power over the entity that troubles the mortal human being. Now, banishments work only when the operator himself has enough magical potency and energetic real key potency in order to dislocate the entity from the patient. In other words, if the operator and the exorcist has no power but relies on some bullshit, then he causes more trouble than necessary. Are these foreign spirits intelligent? Yes. Is it all that it is? Like egregores, god forms, servitors, shadows of the dead, chthonic demons, infernal forces, airy infernal forces, all that. The astral parasites, the fauna and flora of the ethereal things that may cause insanity. Often wise, a weird entity or a weird cluster of, let's say, psychoenergetic parasite may cause diseases. It may lodge itself inside of your body and disturb the homeostasis of the organism. Middle Ages? Perhaps. But sometimes certain diseases, not to undermine modern medicine, but in some cases, when the etiology and the reason is not known, but only the symptoms are known, then it may be caused by an external or internal spiritual agent or fauna and flora of the astral. Now, in short, of course, it is more desirable to commune with higher spirits, with demigods, with angeli bonum, for example, republican imperial damsels and gentlemen of ancient Hellenic times or Rome, they're way up there. And of course, it is detrimental if your mind is made insane, shrapnelized, and you are vulgarized into an uncouth bow radicalized on bullshit. Now, it is like evil or wrongdoing amasses to wrongdoing, passed on from generation to generation. And the dead, the shadows of the dead, don't get any, let's say, better than the living, than they were in life. So imagine this mass of dead, generation to generation, that in some cases, thanatically, may influence the living. For example, what happens when a radical Nazi murderer drops dead? Well, he is kind of pissed off and angry as he was in life and may influence a certain mortal being to certain radicalization and inclination. Now, it's not immediate like that, right? So, first things first, there are influences that are long term. If something attaches to you and tries to pollute you with its nature, short term influences, something makes a direct hit and influences you to this or that. Now, how can it be recognized? For example, change in the cognitive emotive buildup, change of voice, change of character, all that. Now, how do I know that? First of all, I'm a second sighted. Second of things, I can detect energetic forms of things. Third of all, I'm a medium. That means that many walked by flesh. My spirit is strong, my shieldings and soul is destroyed. Spirit, diamond is enough for me as a commanding center. So, as a medium, I can be embodying many beings of various qualities. Legions walked with me. Sometimes I may walk with Angeli Bonum or demigods. Then it is more splendid and beautiful. Sometimes I may be charged with, let's say, goetic soldiers, karmic strength, or very heavy leaden like karma. Sometimes I may be possessed by animal souls and spirits, which are very interesting. And it is so that animals may have an impression of you as a human being, as you have an impression of, for example, a fox spirit. They don't talk our language, and we don't talk their animal language. But there is a certain communication and mutual intelligibility and understanding here. So, as a medium, am I possessed? Well, if I'm self aware of every influence, and every influence is immoral, then it means that I'm strong-willed enough to discern this. Does it always work like that? Sometimes I lose it, like all of us. My mind, my willpower, my strength deflates into the nature that attempts to overpower me. In this case, I may turn into a very naughty bastard, for example, or a vulgar one, or a murderess, or an insane, or a serial killing, rape inclined, my Martian character, right? Mars and Capricorn. Anyway, the idea is to recognize it and control yourself, because that's the way you shape your ethos, your character, your genii, your Juno in case of woman. And at first it was like a curse to me, then it turned into a blessing. Because I've learned myself in many ways, and I started devouring some natures, enhancing my own, and learning from other natures in order to understand things much better than I would as a mortal without such skills. So, if you ever feel and you are observing your mental continuum, your mind, and you know yourself pretty well, that something is wrong and you're not just a monkey pulled left and right on these strings of your mind, emotions, and thoughts, because that's the most easily influenceable part, then learn from it and try to discover what is your nature exactly. Not only that, try to refine it, try to find the best in it, and try to learn. The books are out there, the spirits teach you. Everything is like an open book. And derive what is better in it. There will be times you'll be a wretched scoundrel, evil like a insane motherfucker, but it's all in the learning. If you recognize it, you know where not to go, not to burn your fingers too much, what to respect, and how to build yourself up in a humanely strict discipline. Because discipline is very important. Without discipline, without ordering ourselves as learned magicians, we fall apart. And we are swept into inflation, megalomania, insanity, nut houses, crimes, prisons. It's a dangerous path. Nobody said magic is easy. But it's worth it. Because after a while, you get recognized, respected, and some are listening to your words and sometimes even commands if they're negotiable and reasonable. Some ideas. It's a very complex world, and none of us in the business is omnipotent. But if we have something interesting to contribute to hells and heavens, then why not? That is a worthwhile task. Do with this I give, so that you may give to others. Pro publico bono. Thank you.